Anyway, let's get started. My name is Jay Rose, and I'm very excited to be here, part of this workshop. Tracking devices, a buy here, pay here essential. A lot of us in the business, first of all, let's raise your hand if you are a buy here, pay here dealer. Okay, good. And I guess the rest of you, are we retail, or raise your hand if you're considering on getting into the buy here, pay here business? Okay, perfect. Well, this is a decision that a lot of us have come across, and especially over the years that I've worked with the association. And it's one that is not just an economic decision, but it's also how it impacts our business, our employees, our customers, and also our potential liability. So on our dealer expert panel here, we're very excited to have our three dealers. So first of all, let's give them a hand for being here and donating their time.
Thank you.
First, we have Trey Crouch from Wheels on Credit from Texas, over 25 years experience. I was talking to Trey earlier, and I said, what's the one thing that you can really tell me about you and your background? He says, you know, Jay, over the last 25 years, I've made every single mistake at least once. Now, maybe sometimes we make mistakes and don't realize that we can have an impact on it, but I tell you what, he's done a lot of good things right, and we're certainly excited to get his feedback from today. Next to Trey, we have Kim Bradshaw, who's from First Nations Auto Sales, and also the North Carolina State Quality Dealer of the Year. So certainly glad to hear. Let's give that up.
Thank you.
We'll be rooting for you tomorrow night.
Thank you.
And we also have Arland Keane from Kuehn Auto Sales in Nebraska, Vice President, Region 3. Obviously, many years of supporting the association. So we certainly are very glad to have you here, Arlan, as well. Please, let's give him a hand. What I'd like to do in the 45 minutes that we have is to give each one of our dealer members a chance to kind of explain where they are in their business, how they were exposed to not only the recovery, the option or potential of acquiring a recovery tool, but also a payment reminder system, and whether they use that in combination or separately. So why don't we maybe take 5 minutes, or if you need more time, that's fine. But Trey, why don't you kind of share where you're at in the process of recovery and also payment reminders?
Well, I think we got into using GPS technology to try to be successful and to try to help our customers be successful in repaying their loans. And that's been our focus since we started using them, was how do we set our customers up for success? Obviously, recovery is a part of the business, and the technology does provide us with the ability to recover our vehicles when we need to. But I think more importantly, it's a tool for us to help our customers keep their payments made on time.
Okay. How long have you been using, do you have both GPS and a payment reminder, or do you have just one?
The system that we use has both the GPS location aspect of it, but it also has a three-stage payment reminder where we can set tones based on their delinquency. And it, you know, the first one's kind of a nuisance, the second one's more of a nuisance, and the third one you really can't stand.
Okay.
And so, you know, the thing I like about that is it's a third party reminding them that they need to come in and pay us. You know, you have to go back and look at why do people not pay you.
All right.
And, you know, it's either because they can't, they don't have the money, which is kind of hard to overcome. Right. But if they're just making poor choices, or they didn't make you a priority, the device tends to help make us getting paid first a priority to that customer. And if you can do it without having to call them, I think it's even more important.
Okay.
With the very complex set of laws that we all have to abide by, I think there's less opportunity for a problem if the device helps the customer stay on track versus you having to call them once every couple of weeks for the next 36 months.
And how many accounts do you have?
We have about 1,500.
1,500, okay.
Yeah.
And how many collectors?
We're running with 5.
5 collectors, okay, great. Kim, can you
Yeah,
share
we've
your
been
background?
using the units probably about 8 years now, and as Trey
Okay.
said, I think when the customers know that the unit is on there, the car payment is a priority.
Right.
They don't put us off, they'll put somebody else off. And our collection rates are less than 10%.
Okay.
And the payment reminder, I have found that once we turn on the payment reminder, they call pretty quickly because they know what the next step is.
So it's actually increased or decreased the number of outgoing calls from the collectors and increased the customers calling you.
Yes.
What type of results did you see when you made that shift 8 years ago? How much of a change did you see?
Well, our repo rate went way down.
Okay.
And as far as vehicles that we lost, I can only think of one that we've lost since using the GPS units.
Okay. Excellent. And how many accounts do you have?
We usually have about 250.
Okay. And you have one collector, two collectors? One half?
Normally 2 collectors.
Okay, good. Two collectors. Excellent, great feedback. And Arlan? Actually, it's funny, as Arlan's going through the process we were talking about, what you guys are, some of you are thinking about right now. Should I not, at what level? So please share what you're going through right now.
Well, I just went with a GPS system, and it's working very well. But 16 years ago, when I got into the buy here, pay here, I was hooked up with 2 tribes. We've got 2 tribes within 25 miles of us. That's a little different situation than most buy here, pay here dealers run into. And at the time, I was good friends with the council members on these tribes, and so they set me up as a vendor. So my checks, the majority of them come direct from the tribes. And it's been very good, and so my repo rate is real small on that. And we call the tribal council if there's a problem with somebody, and they'll remind the people that Mr. Keane takes care of your people with service and everything, because we have our service department. So they've been very impressed with us with doing that. So we've been very fortunate. But we've branched out a little more. I joined up with CAC, Credit Acceptance Corporation, approximately a year ago to do more subprime. And that's when I looked into a GPS system, and we're using just the tracking system, and it works.
Okay.
I found a car in New Mexico, you know, that they got away from us, but we got it, and I got called a repo company, and they picked it up for me. So it does work. I'm very happy, and we're going to look into it a little stronger when I get back, because my son is helping me also. He's in the business with me, so.
Okay, excellent.
But I just wanted to hear what everybody else was using too, so
Sure. So actually, and we have a great opportunity tonight from 5 to 5 o'clock to meet with some of the vendors that are out there. So please take a chance, take the opportunity to meet with the vendors to learn more about the products, whether you choose to go with both products, the recovery and the payment reminders, or just one or the other. Let's come into the audience and talk about what your questions are. What are some of the things in your minds right now? So who's got the first question? Back here. Okay. Do you have for the panel itself or a specific person?
I don't know if it's for the panel itself or for a vendor or whatever. What if the GPS company you have now, you have 500 units out, and they go belly up? Can another company come in and monitor your devices, or are you hung out to dry?
That's a good question. So I guess the question would be is what would happen if, in fact, one of your providers went out of business? Could another company come in? And again, has that happened to you?
No, but I
Okay.
10 calls a week from 10 different vendors, so there's a bunch of them out there.
Right.
My question was that something happened, you have all this money invested in all those units, and all of a sudden they ain't any good anymore.
So just hypothetically, if it did happen, is it possible to take over another thing?
Unfortunately, the answer to that is normally no. It depends on who you select. If you select in the top 6 companies, you're probably pretty well comfortable that that's going to be okay. But in the early days when we had to teach people how to spell GPS, that was a real issue. The number of years in business and asked to see their financials, If they won't show you their financials, you might want to question whether you want to go to work with that company.
So I guess the key is great point, is research. Do your research just like we would underwrite a deal with our customer. You know, does anybody in here actually check on references with our customers? I hope so at some point. Well, you should definitely do the same thing.
To reinforce what the gentleman was saying in back, really do your research on these companies. There's been a number of us down in Texas that have been burned, and you really got to find out if they're transferable. One thing you want to look at on your device to see if it's transferable, I've known this because I've put these things underneath the dashboards of people's cars, is a SIM card. If you see a SIM card on there, a lot of times you can transfer them because you can. It's possible to, but check with your provider first. Make sure that's part of it because a lot of times they go off of cellular and GPS. Remember that. If you're in a bad rural area and there's no cell location, it's very likely that you're not going to find that vehicle. And that's what I have another question on it. So, and to change the topic, still using the GPS mind, we're talking about receivables and collections. What about insurances? What are your systems on people who default on not having full coverage, $500 deductible? That's what we require. How do you work? What is your system?
You want to take that first, Trey?
Sure, but I'd like to go back to the previous question.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I think the gentleman raises a very, very important point when you're dealing with GPS technology and other third-party vendors for whether it's software or whatever you're using that you don't control yourself. How many people in the room besides myself have been burned by a company that went away in the middle of the night? I know there's a couple of guys in this room that over the years had dealt with a GPS company that disappeared in the middle of the night and all of our devices quit working. And in fact, that kept me from using GPS for a lot of years after I got burned the first time. It is critical that you approach that decision with a very big picture, long-term outlook, because you don't want to be changing from this company to this company to this company. I would look at it as it's almost a marriage relationship. I mean, what partner do you want to be attached to for the rest of your life? And that may seem dramatic, but you really want to do your background, as the gentleman said. Who you do business with is a choice. Who you spend your money with is a choice. And you'll have nobody to blame but yourself if you don't do the due diligence necessary to be sure that they're financially sound, their product works, and more importantly, that they have the staff in place to stay up with the changes in technology as they come and continue to be able to update firmware and do the things that you're going to want over the next, 3 years at a time anyway, as far as the life of your loans are concerned. And it is critical that you do that. You want to, for me, I look to a global company who has a long history of providing that coverage through several industries, not just buy here, pay here. Matter of fact, buy here, pay here is one of the areas that they're in business, but they've been doing business in lots of other areas for a lot of years, and they're financially very sound.
What he said about the insurance, I had an instance last week where a customer was up to date on payments, but insurance was canceled. And we did turn the vehicle off, and they didn't agree with that. So in talking with our DMV inspector, he said, as long as your contract states that is part of your contract, that you must maintain insurance, he said there was no problem, and ours did. He said, but there are contracts that do not mention insurance.
And that's why it's so important to seek whoever you use for your legal counsel to make sure that those situations have been vetted, because those little things, turning off someone's car if it's not in the contract, could get you in trouble. Great point. Arlan, anything?
Yeah, we have them sign insurance forms right away and get their insurance, and we have a copy photoed or faxed to us before we deliver the car.
Okay.
And we try to use insurance companies that we know. Progressive is a good one we use, and they'll contact us immediately, and we're right there to call them and say, you need your insurance back up to date. And normally in another day, I've got another form comes that they've reinstated their insurance. So we watch that real close.
That's great. Other questions? I know Joe is here to also take some questions. Joe, you work with a lot of dealers, and you must get this asked a lot of times in classes. What are some of the biggest concerns that dealers have regarding the devices?
Legal issues.
Okay.
Everyone's questioning, what can I legally do or not do? You've read all the horror stories in automotive news and dealer used car news. So based upon those stories, dealers oftentimes are reluctant to make a decision, not recognizing that person may have faltered and not do due diligence, for their particular area. The laws are different, state by state, and certainly you can't be fearful of using this device.
What other questions? Oh, you know, oh.
I'll get over here.
You disclose it on everything, which you can, so we do too, But I think taking care of the customer.
As far as legal, how about the paperwork? I've read lately in a few of the dealer magazines that the paperwork's changing, and dealers would try to hide it in their paperwork, bury it, and other ones would make it known. And the second part to that question is, have you done better with making it known than possibly burying it?
Well, I'll address that first. I think you're asking for a lot of problems if you do not disclose completely and fully to your customer that you're using devices. For my business, that's just part of what we do. We're very upfront. We're black and white. Our logo is black and white, and we're very upfront with our customers. In fact, in Texas, if you don't disclose it, you violated criminal law. And I don't know about other states, but I think it's important to your success to be upfront and honest with your customer.
We have a separate disclosure form from the other forms that we sign. And to me, it's a benefit to let them know that it's on there because they're more apt to make that payment if they know it's there.
I agree. You have to disclose everything. And I think a lot of dealers in the business make the mistake of assuming the customer knows, and they'll, hey, sign this, sign this, sign this, And if you got to treat that buy here, pay here customer just like a full retail customer. And if they have faith in you and you have a good reputation, we don't seem to have any problem with them signing anything. We show them we disclose everything. And that's been a problem with a lot of dealers I've talked to in the past. Well, we never did that. And I said, you have to do that. You have to be in compliance.
Well, plus the other thing we were talking earlier is about if you're buying your pay here, you're a financial fitness coach. And this is just one of those tools that Trey was mentioning about being on the consumer side, how this is a positive thing. And to sell that during your sales process and delivery process, why it's going to help them keep them on track to get their ultimate goal of reestablishing their credit. What if how many deals, or I should say devices, have been taken off cars? Because one of the questions I know some dealers have asked before is, okay, if the customer knows it's there, will they go hunting for it to try to take it off? Does that happen often, or is it an anomaly?
It happens very, very rarely.
Okay.
Out of more than 1,000 devices, I only know of 2 that were tampered with. And we just don't have that experience. I would go back also when the gentleman mentioned insurance earlier. If you're going to buy devices and install them on your vehicles, why not use that as a benefit to the customer? Now, we have talked about why it's a benefit to us as a dealer. We want to collect our money and we want to have some comfort in where our cars are sleeping at night. But the reality is we want the customer to pay us. And if you're going to make the investment as a dealer to buy this technology and put it on the vehicle, I think it's important that you give the customer some benefit as well. If you have the ability to recover a stolen vehicle for a customer, what is that worth? Does that set you apart from every other dealer? If you've had an experience where you've had a car stolen recently The insurance company is probably not going to give you enough money to satisfy the loan balance, first of all. Customer is going to be without a vehicle and may not have the ability to get into another vehicle if they only had liability insurance or had some issues with insurance. So the ability to use a GPS technology to recover a stolen vehicle could be the difference between this family walking or being able to continue to drive in the coming days. So sell it as a benefit.
Joe, you have a question out there?
My question is, do you put them on every vehicle, or do you have to put them on every vehicle? Or I mean, I have customers, I've been doing it for 26 years. I got people that's been buying for 20 years, live in the same house, working the same job, they're not going anywhere. Do I have to put them on every vehicle? Can I be selective on what vehicles I put them on?
Well, we put it on every vehicle just to be on the safe side so that somebody can't come back and say, well, why did you put it on mine? You didn't put it on this person.
I think it makes sense to put it on every vehicle. I don't think you want to create two separate classes of customers, the ones you like, the ones you didn't like, the ones you knew, the ones you don't know. I think you're opening yourself up to a lot of issues there if you don't put them on every car. We just put them on every car as soon as they come in.
And then part of your, does that answer your question?
What, you know, if I might also respond to that, you know,
Sure.
if I could look at a customer and tell whether he was going to pay or not, I wouldn't need GPS system.
Good point.
So, you know, I've never been able to say that I could do that consistently. But the one thing I'd like to step back to is when you spoke about disclosure or non-disclosure. In the early days of using GPS, we only saw them as a recovery device. When the deal went bad, how do I get the car back? Now we never want the car back. We want our money. And so they've evolved to become collection tools. And each one of you, as we listen to you, that's what you're using it for, is a collection tool, not just a recovery tool. And to do that, you have to have disclosure, disclosure, disclosure. And your disclosure has to be written in such a way that you can use that as a benefit to the customer and a benefit to you that protects you both against liability and provides an additional service to the customer and enhances your collections. And I appreciate what you're saying there.
Good point. A question over here, Jill?
Could you elaborate a little bit more about the 3 different types of beeps that get increasingly obnoxious and how that's set up?
Well, with the system that we use, if a customer's 2 or 3 days past due, they need a gentle reminder, hey, you need to come in and make your payment. So we send a code to the car. It's a mildly annoying buzzer. And typically within 48 hours, a payment comes in when we send the first notice. So that's huge as far as getting our money to come in more consistently and faster than prior to using devices. And Ken's made reference in the previous session that the statistics do prove that is a fact. And we've seen that in our, you know, I listened to that for a lot of years of guys that were using technology. But for my business, we focus on promises to pay kept. And prior to using GPSs with the payment technology, we got the car back, but by using the payment reminder, we're getting payments within 48 hours. And that's, you know, how do you put a value on how that money comes in? I mean, talk about frozen capital, frozen assets. That buzzer, they're not mad at me when that buzzer goes off. It's hey, I need to get in there and make my payment. Now, if they don't make that payment within 48 hours, then we take it to the next level, which is a louder, more annoying reminder. So it's just like, first one's, hey, I need you to make your payment. The second one's a little more serious. Hey, you know, you need to get in here. And typically, we get payments when that happens. Now, if they don't have the money, it probably doesn't matter whether the buzzer's there or not. If they don't have the money, they don't have the money. But they'll try to get it by the time that third reminder comes out, because really it's an embarrassment at that point. You know, if there's anybody in the car with them, it's gonna be an unpleasant moment.
So
and if they can get the money, they will bring it into us.
I'm sorry, you're spacing 2 days first beep, second,
Well,
next day?
it all depends on contact. We don't have a specific
Defined? Okay.
defined, you know, schedule.
Okay. Kim, do you use the same first beep after 2 days, or is it first day, first beep?
We just have one beep, but,
Okay.
but most of our payments are set up bi-weekly. And we will actually let them get 7 days before we'll do the warning.
So you're 7 days first beep, okay? Is it first beep, second beep, shut off, or first beep, shut off?
Well, we usually tell them up front, if you
Okay.
hear that warning beep, you need to contact me within 24 hours or your car will be disabled.
Okay.
And
So you leave it up to the collector to choose to shut it off, okay? Excellent. Arlen?
We just use the GPS, only no shut off or no beeps, but we contact them. I've got a gal that works on that all the time, and if they're a day past due, we find out if there's a problem or try to work with them. But we try to smother them with service too. We do a lot of service. We offer them to come in to have their car serviced. We treat them right. We rotate their tires free, and we check them over, and I'll hand them a wash ticket, especially if they come in for a payment, you know, and that they appreciate that. And I've been in the business so long, I guess. I know most of the people, you know, 42 years total, but 16 years buy here, pay here. So,
Joe, you got a question? Please.
Hi, I got a question. You say you put them in all vehicles, but I'm a rural dealer. I sell lots of factories and farmers and stuff. Do you know of any legalities where I can geofence, like if I could have a radius, a map on the wall saying, okay, you're 35 miles from my dealership, you came from a city of 50,000 with 200 dealers, and you came to my little town. Would it be legal for me to do something like that?
I don't think you want me giving you legal advice.
Where's Tom? Or Mike Dunning? Somebody.
I think it depends on which state you're in, or
Yeah,
if they're
I
going
would
across.
check with your state attorney. Start with the association.
The reason I was slow at doing this was we're on a tri-state area. Where my business is, I'm 5 miles from the Iowa border, 5 miles from the South Dakota border, so we've got 3 different states we're dealing with.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons, and it's all local, you know, it's more small communities, so.
I will tell you that we geofence the border. I live on the Rio Grande River, southern border of Texas, and we do tell our customers they do not have the permission from us to take the vehicle out of the country, and we do geofence that. We think it's a good idea. We also geofence the impound yards, so that if one of our cars ends up in an impound yard, we know it before they send us the notification letter. We know it before the customer fesses up that something's wrong. And that has saved us a lot of money on fees, getting vehicles out of impound.
Good. Question?
Yes, hi. I am wondering how much support in terms of policy implementation and compliance you get from your vendors, your GPS and star interrupter vendors, and who are those vendors that you're currently using?
I can tell you, I got a lot of bad information over the years from vendors in the past that really could have landed me in hot water. I would tell you that I get a lot of support from our current software provider, I use Iteron. And, you know, I think it's important that you do business with somebody who's used to operating in multiple states with enough resources to stay up with the compliance issues from a state and federal point of view, or you're asking for a lot of problems.
And it goes back to the ounce of prevention. Make sure you do your due diligence, get with the vendors tonight, get their agreements, and then obviously get with your attorney for that advice. Do you have anything you want to add, Kim or Arlen?
Well, our vendor supplies us with the documents that we need as far as getting signed from the customers. And as far as support, if there is ever an issue, we can call them and they answer the phone right away and help us through it.
Good. Joe, you have another question?
STARS GPS.
Good. Excellent.
Good afternoon.
That one, that's a good one.
I just wanted to know the cost of the GPS system. Is that automatically placed into the deal, or do y'all let the clients know that there's going to be a separate charge for that to add this device to the vehicle?
To include or not include?
Well, we don't charge the customer for ours. We absorb that up front.
It's just an internal cost of doing business
internal cost.
in this space for us.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question? Oh, there you go. I'll get you. We'll
In
make it
your
two.
states, are you allowed to charge that fee? Are you allowed to charge a separate fee for your units?
Not in Texas.
And I don't know where the other two states are.
Does anybody in here charge separate? No? Oh,
Okay.
Okay. Jill, and
Can we give a legal tip before we move on?
oh, good. Here we go. Thank you. The Savior has come.
Yeah, the reason you don't charge for that fee is that under federal law, if you charge for it, it turns that cost into a finance charge. You won't be disclosing it correctly. So if you're requiring the device, you can't charge for it.
Thank you, Tom.
That comes from the scariest man on earth.
You had a
Tom
question for Tom, didn't you? Tom, you started something. Tom? You started something.
That was just freebie.
Real
That
quick,
was the
Tom,
pro bono
what
question.
happens when they pay off? Can we charge them a fee to keep the device?
It is our box.
Was
We own it.
what happens when they pay off? Do you charge them a fee to keep the device? The device is yours at that point. If it has some function for them and if they agree to buy it from you at that point, I guess they could buy it from you, but I wouldn't charge them a fee to take it off and keep it.
And I'm guessing y'all recycle all your units?
Yes.
Now, one other question about do you have to put them on all the cars? The answer to that is no, but you can't discriminate on a prohibited basis trying to figure out which cars you're going to put them on and which ones you won't.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Let's give him a hand. Thank you. Any other questions? We get time for one question before we wrap it up. Oh, okay. Pardon? Cost of the question is cost of the units, and that's probably one that's going to depend on whether you get both devices or just one. And I know the panel has different setups. Best thing to do is to compare it, get with the vendors tonight, compare their programs, because I know, like anything, there's differences. And if we make our decisions based on just price, we may miss out on a bigger liability issue. But that's a great question.
I think I would when you ask that question of me, I think I would redirect you to do some research into what is the value, what am I really buying for this price. If you're just looking for the lowest price, I think you're missing a lot.
And usually the ones that go out of business were usually the lowest price, whether it's in service contracts or devices or anything else. So that's a great point. Just kind of a closing recap, 1 or 2 minutes. One thing I do want to mention, all three of the dealer panelists up here are all certified master dealers. And just like in the industry statistics, the average buy here, pay here dealer, 25% of them are using payment devices, whereas over 50% of the certified master dealers are using these devices. So obviously there's something there. And I certainly appreciate Joe's help in fielding questions, and make sure if you haven't signed up for the October certified master dealer class, please do so, because that's one of the many topics that's covered. So if, in just kind of a 1 or 2 minute recap, what would you want these attendees to leave with about devices?
I would say do your research, do your homework. The technology definitely works. I personally have made a huge financial commitment to a long-term partnership with a company that I feel like is going to partner with me and not only help me be successful, but help my customers to be successful in paying their loans so they can come back and buy another car from us. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, is trying to find ways to be successful. The only thing I want to do is make deposits into my bank. But everything else that I do is for that privilege.
Right.
And this is just one tool that is a necessary tool in order to be able to get that opportunity.
And just like you had mentioned about the price, to make sure you look at both sides of the equation. What's the fully burdened cost or savings by not having to add an extra collector, because you have a payment device that allows each collector to take an extra 100, 150, 200 accounts?
Feel free to stop me anytime during the conference
Yep.
if you want to ask specific questions.
In fact, if it's okay, if you could be available for a few minutes after, if they do have any specific questions.
Be great.
Okay, excellent. Kim?
Again, what Trey said is you have to do your research. When we started using the units, I went with 3 different companies, and I bought 5 units from each company to kind of test the waters, and there were some that I wouldn't use if they were free. So you just have to do your research.
Sure. Excellent.
Well, we're still working on that, but the thing that I think we do the best is, both my son and I, both CMD graduates, we get more money down, and we're not afraid to ask for the money down.
Right.
And it builds some good rapport with your customer because they've got some money invested. I've talked to a lot of buy here, pay here people through the years, and there's a lot of them do 500 down or 299, and I don't do that. We get the good money down, or we don't do the deal, or I use CAC, we've got other places to run
For cash flow,
deals,
yeah.
yeah. But I want the good ones if I can, for myself. And
So it's nice to have the technology and the tool, but it's not to replace good sound practices for underwriting and deal structure, just like Ken talks about.
Thank you.
Thank you.